Welcome everyone to GamerMeld. As you can see, I have a new backdrop, and that's because of CES. That's right, the world's largest consumer electronics show starts today, to which I will be covering it. I'm either going to be streaming a video later today of Intel's event, or I'm just going to do a video after. Either way, let me know what you think of the new backdrop. Do you like it, or do you prefer the old one? Let me know down in the comments below. And of course, after CES, I will be going back to my normal videos. With that said, there's a ton of news today. Starting with 11th Gen Intel, Ryzen 5000 desktop APU, dual CCD Ryzen, 2 new desktop Ryzen CPUs, Rocket Lake gets benchmarked, and Nvidia teases tons of new stuff. Okay, so let's get right to it. Starting things off, we have the Ryzen 7 5700G. And if you know anything about Ryzen, the G moniker means desktop APUs. Now, for those who don't know, the 4000G series unfortunately was released, but it never came to the DIY market. It was only put in pre-builds. With that said, there is some hope that this could actually make it to the DIY market. As you see here, it says Zen 3 may finally be coming to desktop APUs. And the reason for that, I do believe, is just because there is an engineering sample that was found. With that said, this engineering sample, which is an 8-core, 16-thread CPU, only had a boost clock of 4.4 GHz. Now, I say only just because there was a new one found, as you can see right here, by Tom Apisak in Geekbench, and they actually found it clocked as high as 4.66 GHz, meaning this could be a pretty powerful APU. Of course, time, as always, will tell. But first, if you find it hard to make time for a good book, you're not alone. But I've got the answer with today's sponsor, Blinkist, the app that takes thousands of non-fiction books and condenses them into short 15-minute snippets. That lets you get the best insights from over 3,000 books. Plus, you have the option to either read or listen like an audiobook, so you're able to learn no matter what you're doing. To top it off, they now offer full-length audiobooks up to 65% off for members. So don't wait, join over 14 million users with Blinkist today. And the first 100 people who go to Blinkist.com/GamerMeld get unlimited access for 1 week to try it out. You'll also get 25% off on the full membership after, so make sure to check that out. And next up, we have even more Ryzen, with Momomo_US finding likely a benchmark that shows a 5900 and 5800 non-X models. So these are ones that, while still overclockable, don't come with precision boost overclock. But if the pass is any indication, with the non-X models, almost always you're able to overclock them very, very close to their X counterparts. And as you can see here, the 5900 and 5800 have boost clocks of 4.7 GHz and 4.6 GHz respectively. And that's actually only 100 MHz lower than their X counterparts. So the really great thing here is the fact that you'll almost definitely be able to overclock it to those, but these will likely be at least a bit cheaper. And what's great about this is the fact that obviously the new 5000 series did go up a bit in price, so this could potentially be a way of getting it back down to that other price point, to the 3000 price point. With that said, there is a bit of interesting news on Ryzen CPUs, specifically what was found by one Usmis and Igor's lab. It looks like some Ryzen 5 5600X and Ryzen 7 5800Xs were found with dual CCDs. For those who don't know, Ryzen is built, or at least the Zen architecture that Ryzen is based on, is built off of multi-chip modules. That is basically where you take multiple modules or CCDs and combine them to make the chip with however many cores. Now the thing is that the Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7, at least for the 5000 series, are supposed to come with a single CCD. And the reason why is because each CCD comes with 8 cores. The Ryzen 7 goes up to 8 cores, Ryzen 5600X is obviously 6 cores, but you of course don't need 2 CCDs for even less, but basically each CCD comes with 8 cores, which means you should be fine using 1 CCD for each. The problem is that at least during some testing, just because they were running into some issues with the utility, with some software basically with it, they found that some actually had 2 CCDs. With that said, the ones who had to actually had the CCD 0 disabled. You can see it right here. It was disabled, but at the time it could trigger some UI bugs with some of the utilities that they were working with, which is kind of how they found out about it. What this likely means is that they're binning chips that may have been intended to be, say, a 5900X or anything that requires at least 2 CCDs, but something is wrong with one of the CCDs, so they just disable it and call it a 5800X. Now, with that said, because they aren't using, say, 4 cores here on one CCD and then 4 cores on the other, they're just completely disabling one CCD. There shouldn't be any kind of performance difference, but of course with the fact that they were triggering some bugs, we may need to do some tests on that. But as of now, they are almost certainly going to be just as fast as their single CCD counterparts. Once again, just because one CCD is completely disabled, so it's still ultimately one CCD that's functioning, that's doing all the work. So you aren't going to run into latency issues with having cross CCD communication or anything like that. And of course, with CES starting today, while Intel hasn't officially had their main press event just yet, things are already coming out. They have already officially announced some things, mostly just because it is at least going to be today. So for starters, they have gone ahead and announced their 11th gen Tiger Lake H CPUs. Now, understand that the H series is their high performance CPUs, and this is the H35, so we're looking at 35 watt processors. And I do have to admit, they're fairly impressive, sort of. As you can see right here, they are impressive in that they clock up to single core 5 GHz turbo, which is definitely impressive. Don't forget, these are laptop CPUs. But when we move down here and actually look at the specs, we can see that it only gets up to 4 cores. There were some rumors earlier saying that we would see higher core count CPUs from Intel, but at least as of now, it looks like we have not, at least based on their Tiger Lake CPUs. Still, this is a fairly decent jump, and I would expect a fairly decent jump in performance. You can see that it is 4 cores and 8 threads, with DDR4 support up to 3200 and TDP up to 35 watts or down to 28 watts. And obviously this 11375H does get up to a single core turbo of 5 GHz. Moving on, we have the 11370H, which gets up to 4.8 GHz single core turbo, and then the i5 11300H, which gets up to 4.4. Of course, while once again these are only 4 cores and 8 threads, I would love to see how it performs just because Tiger Lake seems to be such a decent jump in performance. And speaking of jumps in performance, I'm a little bit disappointed, I have to say, in Rocket Lake. As you can see here, Intel is already showing off their newest processors, even though once again they haven't technically fully announced it, though according to Geeknetic, they have somewhat announced it ahead of time, and we're already seeing some performance metrics coming out. Starting things off, you can see right here that they did a let's just put it right here. You can see that they did a side-by-side comparison with Metro Exodus, with Intel getting 156 versus AMD's 147. And Video Cards calls it the 12-core AMD, so this is almost certainly going to be a Ryzen 5000 CPU, the 5900X. But one interesting thing to note, and it's why I'm at least a bit disappointed, is that we can see that it looks like the 10900K already beats the 5800X and 5900X and all of that in Metro Exodus. So I'm a bit confused as to why they're showing it off as a big win for Rocket Lake when apparently they already beat it. Maybe I'm missing something here, or maybe this is one of the most cherry-picked benchmarks of all time in that they aren't even doing any better. I don't know. We'll definitely have to test out Rocket Lake. We'll have to see their full announcement later today, but I have to say that I'm a bit disappointed. And lastly for today, Nvidia has officially announced their upcoming event, which is going to be tomorrow. And of course, make sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the things that are coming out of that, because it definitely looks like there's going to be quite a bit. As you can see right here, they recently tweeted out a bit of a teaser for their upcoming CES event. Let's quickly go through this. Let's see if I can actually stop it on time. Yeah, I wasn't able to. So first off, they quickly show off a laptop, which is of course something that we've been expecting. They are almost certainly going to be announcing their GeForce RTX 3000 cards. And of course, make sure to look and see that this was actually published by their Nvidia GeForce Twitter handle. So this is certainly aimed at gamers, which obviously means that this is almost 100% sure going to be an announcement of their RTX 3000 mobile GPUs. Then they quickly show, oh, and they also mentioned game on, so this is obviously 100% gaming related. Then they show this right here. It's the game Outsiders, which is almost certainly just showing, hey, we have more games coming out that support, our RTX tech and all of that good stuff. I'm sure that they're going to be displaying numerous games that are going to be coming out with real-time ray tracing and things like that. But then they also briefly show the RTX label, which likely means that the recent leaks that we've been seeing on a 12 gigabyte RTX 3060 or 3060 Ultra and potentially the 3080 Ti are almost certainly going to be announced here. So that's going to be some good stuff to look forward to. And then finally, they show this, which if you know anything about the kind of recent thing with AMD announcing their smart access memory and then Nvidia coming out and saying, hold on, all that is resizable bar support. We can do that. We've actually already seen some motherboards that supported on Intel CPUs, but as of now, that was still only with AMD GPUs. And by this graphic, I do have to say that it's almost 100% sure this is referencing to resizable bar support. So Nvidia is likely going to announce that support for their RTX 3000 cards and maybe even 2000 cards coming soon. So anyway, that was a quick little preview of what is to come. Once again, make sure to subscribe so you can find out all the great stuff coming out by Intel as well as AMD, let's not forget, and Nvidia. And of course, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Let me know what you think about the backdrop. And as always, have a great day.